What's not simple is just big content in general, figuring out a game plan, figuring out the future for this, figuring out where we wanted to take this. Obviously, if you're watching this now, it's the first time that we've had an episode out since we've been in the office. That's a couple months at this point, right? 2-3 months. And I think when we sat down in the old office to discuss like what is the future of big content, I don't know that we ever necessarily like had a super defined goal with what this was. And I think both of us like talking about the subject, so it was fine that we did that. I think there's always going to be that internal monologue with yourself, like, how do we make this bigger? How do we make this better? How do we, help accomplish goals that we want out of this overall? So we got in here, and I mean, you were traveling all the time, and our schedule got a little hectic, which is not a good excuse to not continue this going whatsoever. But I think we kind of came to like maybe a little bit of an identity crisis. Maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but we were like, do we just continue me and Jack? Do we start bringing on guests here? And if we do bring on guests, are they all just like creators that we like, that we could just talk about, the creator economy, whatever? Are they extremely defined guests where it's like this person's an expert in X, Y, Z? The other thing was like, I wanted to make my own solo content, but I was like, how does that fit into the plan of what we're doing here? And then I wanted to do that for a little while. I did. And then I started making a lot of content with our new Dynasty Fantasy Football channel, and a lot of the vlogs, started to become a consistent thing. And then I found less of an urge to want to make it. And I've always looked at this type of content as stuff that I do because I want to. It's an outlet. So as soon as I started to feel pressure of, now you got to do 2 videos a week yourself. Now you and Jack have to do this, and now you have to find guests, and now you have to like make sure that you're posting your individual stuff on, on YouTube and on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I'm like, holy fuck, I just created a whole new job for myself out of something that I'm supposed to really love doing. And that kind of psyched me out. And then, this just like kind of derailed us for a little while. And then we sat down. Our producer, Will, was like, let's get our shit together. Let's meet up. Let's talk it out. Let's vent a little bit. And so I think we just tried to simplify everything. So from your point of view, what was happening? Were you just like, Nick will tell me when I feel like we got to sit back down again? Or
No, I think that this is probably the best lesson in content creation. Do you want to do this? And if you want to do this, at what scale do you want to do it? And if at what scale do you want to do it, do you love it enough to want to grind through X, Y, and Z to do it? My feeling on this stuff is I love talking about it. I think it's really interesting. I think it can help 1 or 2 people. But I think it also at times can take away from keeping the main thing the main thing. I don't, like, it's not my focus in terms of making money, so it's always going to fall by the wayside. Mm-hmm. And then you're doing with another person, and this is one of the fears of doing with another person, if your incentives are disaligned or just your motivation is disaligned. So I think where I got to was, how do we almost just acknowledge that it's a side thing, not make it a main thing, and do it at our own luxury?
I think that was hard for me because I it obviously was not my main thing, neither of our main things, but like the actual content itself was like what I love doing the most. Yeah. So emotionally, it felt like the main thing for me. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like when we're unaligned there, then it feels like, oh, fuck.
Like, yeah, the misalignment, I think, has always been, this is like your life's mission. Yeah. This is like your dream. Yeah. To help other creators. Mine is, it's not my life's mission to help other creators. Mine is kind of like just, what do they say on the podcast? I forget the adjective, but like also, transparency.
I also want to just say, I was listening to your free agent pod with Marlon, and you whipped out the Dark Knight quote again.
Which one?
You live long enough to be. You live long enough.
Have I said that?
Yeah.
Today?
You either live long enough to...
You didn't say it today, but you brought it up on big... You've tried to say it on big content 3 or 4 different times.
Yeah, you live long enough
to
see...
You either die early or live long enough to see yourself as the villain.
No, you either die a hero or live
every single time.
Long enough to see yourself become the villain. Right. Wait, what's that related today? Or you're just saying I said it with Marlon? Right, about Patrick Queen going.
You just
to,
said you were just in the middle of saying like I've said this on the show before, and that triggered to me because
that's not what I was going.
Because you've always tried to say that quote and butchered it every time, and then I heard it on the punchline, and I was like, "You fucking."
All right, the other quote that I can't think of is something about adjective transparency, and
Like,
I can't.
It's just some random adjective.
No, it's an adjective that's like not unfaithful, unrivaled, just like the most amount of transparency. What would that be? What would this
Maximum, supreme.
But that's not the word. Anyways, that's always been my goal because I think it will then help people. When I was going through the early days of this, and even in anything I do, all I want to know is like how the people who've done it did it before, and the generation before us and generations before us, they gatekept everything. Like, they don't reveal anything. Like, the most helpful thing about being in the office together is, like, you understand if I'm negotiating a deal with X person, like, here's the rate, right? Like, even those little things are so helpful. So I think our priorities are aligned a little bit in that regard because
they're aligned in the content.
But it is not my life mission to like set up, be fucking Yoda or be a sensei and teach creators. But I think there was enough. So my one feeling on big content was if we're going to do it, we either have to be okay with it being a side thing, doing it when it fits, kind of just like, I don't want to say packing it in, but not worrying about that. Or if we're going to do it seriously, we're just screaming into an abyss and we're not accomplishing anything that we're doing. Right. So trying to figure out what we're optimizing for, how to do it. And we went through a couple interesting ideas. I think those ideas led us to recognize we don't want that bad enough today to sacrifice a little bit of, I don't want to say hard work. Like, we would do the hard work, but it's the work that we hate.
There's times when I'm like, man, I work so hard at some things, and there's like, this is something that I feel so passionately about, but I'm just like, why am I not doing this? And it makes me a little bit nervous about just other things. So I'm like, what if this starts happening in this direction of life? And maybe it's because the stakes aren't high enough for me, but I'm like, that's how any great creator gets made, is like the stakes are never high at the beginning because you have nothing. It's like you just have to want it so bad that you're going to push past all the bullshit. I'm like, I'm not doing that right now. Like, how the fuck do I expect to get to a certain level if I'm not willing to push myself to levels that you don't know are fucking there right now? And that kind of fucked with me a little bit. And then I think a lot of it, we've talked about the packaging of these shows and stuff where it's like I'm okay talking about this stuff every single week for an hour out of the week because it's what I love doing. But then it's like, if we're going to put it out there, I do think there's a floor of like, let's think through the thumbnails and the titles. Yeah. And I felt like a lot of that ended up being kind of thrown back on me where I'm like, I want to make this happen so badly. But I was like, we're not meeting halfway or 33%, whatever the fucking, makeup of it is, where I'm fine going back to like thinking about this as hopefully we could help a very small group of people. But at that time, like, I think we could do both the right way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think where we're at right now is we're back to doing these once a week pretty much. I will try to do individual videos when I feel like doing that. I think putting less pressure on myself to do that because I was like, I'll do 2 a week, and then they'll be like 30 minutes each. And then as soon as I was like, I don't have time for it this week, then I felt like, it's like when people like try to start a diet and they're like, I went like 400 calories over my limit. Might as well just like fuck the whole thing kind of up. It's like that. It was like that mentality for me with content, which again kind of scared me because that's never really been the thing that's held me back before. So it's a new problem that I'm approaching as a creator, which I'm thankful when these problems arise because it does make me a more well-rounded creator and it makes me smarter going through problems that I haven't encountered before. But I think we're good doing it once a week, and I think we're going to try to find a more templated version of what we're doing for thumbnails and have the clips going up so people can find exactly what they're looking for, because we've always been a relatively scattered show in terms of like the topics that we're covering, which I think is okay, and I think it's fine. It's fun for us because it's just a conversation that flows. But I do think from a subscriber standpoint, I've heard this from friends of mine, I've heard this from people in the industry, it's just like, I never really know like where the show is going to go. It's good, but it could also be bad because maybe half the shit doesn't relate to me. Like, I know people who are just smaller creators that want to know about like fucking YouTube thumbnails, don't give a shit about sketch, and I think breaking it up into different little topics and videos is going to be super helpful going forward.
Yeah. Optimization. I've always pushed that. That doesn't mean cheating the algorithm, but definitely optimizing for the playing field. And it's really just meeting your people where they are.
Yep.
Like Alex's girlfriend just launched a business today called Moments by Kara.
How much ecky you got?
I got no ek for this plug. But it was really interesting because in her initial posting of what she does, it's like, I do birthdays, I do bachelor parties, I do whatever. And that's great to kind of give the Instagram account some, content that people can kind of view and get a pulse on. But I would almost like be so hyper specific and less. I think a lot of the times in marketing, we worry too much about like hitting more people versus hitting someone directly. And like, I don't need birthday or baby shower or all these other things. But like if she had posted 3 months ago, like, I'll plan your bachelor party in this city, I would have been like, oh, then, you just need one to get the train rolling. Then,
I mean,
that's just the optimization of like our clips. Right now, we're just posting, hey, we talk about content, when in reality, we need to be posting for people like Will about Sketch the software, for people like you, Sketch the creator. And I think you can hit both.
Yeah. So we'll continue to take a well-rounded approach, but try to bubble it down for the people that are looking for specific things out there.